Good morning. I'm here with my grandmother Sonia, who was born in 1938, to ask her about her perspective on the economy while she was growing up. Do I have your permission to record you?
Yes. Yes, you have my permission to record me. This is Sonia Lesney.
Okay, so my first question is, how do you remember the economy when you were in your 20s?
I don't really remember it. I just remember things about it. Okay.
What were some of those things that you remember most?
Well, gas was 25 cents a gallon. My first home I paid $12,000 for, and $50 a month mortgage. Let me see if I can think of other things. Those are the main, things, because they're pretty huge things as far as, living and working and going from place to place. Anything else? I remember taxes, and my taxes were 50% of our income, 50 to 60% of our income.
Wow.
So that's another thing that I remember.
So my next question is, what do you feel has changed most about the economy and those details you told me since then?
Oh my God, everything. I mean, if you wanted to make a telephone call, it was 5 cents.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in and there were telephone booths all over the place you could use. And actually, if you wanted to buy a cup of coffee, it was 10 cents. So I remember that. And I remember my father buying us a hot dog at a baseball game, and I think the hot dogs cost 15 cents a piece. I mean, baseball hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, when I think back on it, it's so stunning. It seems that in the last maybe 10 years or 20 years or so, the cost of living has been just increased outrageously. When I used to pay, say 10 years ago, if I went to the grocery store and spent $50, I'd have enough groceries for probably 2 weeks. Now, if I spend $50, I use them up in about 3 or 4 days. So that's another example.
So my next question was going to be, do you like or dislike these changes? And I think I can tell that you dislike them. But my question after that is, did your parents ever talk about their experiences during the Great Depression?
Well, my father did one time, because he actually made money during the Depression. He lived in Hartford, Connecticut, which was an insurance town where all the insurance companies were. And apparently, living in Hartford, Connecticut during the Great Depression was a good thing to do if you wanted to make money. He was a businessman. He was like an entrepreneur, and during that period of time, because I asked him that question actually many, many, many years ago. He's been dead 50 years. And he said, "Well, Sonia, I made money during the Depression." So that's what I remember.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So through an economic lens, how different or what main differences do you see between raising a family when you did and raising a family in today's market? For context, my father is around 50 and my uncle is in his upper 40s.
Yeah, again, it was very, very much less complicated. When my kids were small, things like telephone and electricity and all those things were public utilities. So they were regulated by the state I was in, which was Florida. And I don't remember what the structure was, whether it was, that was federal. Everybody had it that way. But so it was extremely simple. I got a bill that had all of the public utilities on it at one payment, and that was it. And you had one telephone number. If you wanted to make a long-distance call, you called the long-distance operator. It was very less complicated from that point of view. Plus, if you got insurance on your house, it was very inexpensive, and there weren't all these, codicils to where what particular little space you were living in, et cetera. Are you in a flood zone? None of those things existed. So it was very, very easy to move through life without all of these encumbrances that we have now with regulations, and every time you turn around, the rules change, the laws change, And to me, that's extremely stressful for anybody, these kids that are trying to, make with their little children and stuff, make it from day to day. Difficult you have to have both parents working. That wasn't the case when I was young. My husband could have very easily supported us, So I think it's a terribly, terribly stressful time for young people now. For everybody, not just young people, old people. Listen, Trump is the president of the United States.
Let's not get too political.
No, I'm just going to say, think of that. Trump is the president of the United States. He's the worst that has ever been in existence.
We're getting political.
No, I'm just saying, no, it isn't, because what I'm saying is you're asking about the complications of life. There's nobody that's ever been like him. He's a criminal.
Well, I have another question.
Wait a minute. He's a criminal, and he's the president of the United States. We have had pretty bad presidents.
So for my next question, I wanted to ask you, I know you went on to be a family physician, and my grandfather also went on to be a doctor in his field. So as far as tuition, would you mind telling me when you graduated from the University of Miami and how much your tuition was?
I don't know. I had a trust fund. So the money was paid out of my trust fund for the first 2 years I went to school, and then afterwards, I got a loan for finishing up my medical school. And what I remember was paying back that loan, and I think it took about 10 years of $30 a month
Wow.
to pay back my loan to do the last 2 years in medical school.
To get a doctorate in medical school?
Mm-hmm.
It took you 10 years to pay that off?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What year did you graduate?
1964.
One could only wish nowadays.
Now, it's upwards, I think, of $100,000 a year to go to pay many medical
most
schools.
Definitely, and even just to get a bachelor's.
Yeah.
Last question is, what is your biggest challenge today as a senior in the economy that we currently have?
Well, I'm not sure. It's something I'd have to think about, but I'm, fortunate that I have a good Social Security. I have good Social Security and good savings. So, but if anybody just has to, mine happens to be a good Social Security. I don't know if I could live on it, to tell you the truth. I don't know if I could live on it because I have other income that I can use to live on. But I don't know how people make it. Out of your Social Security, you have to pay your Medicare and that kind of thing.
The reality is, if you don't own a home already, it's not really a livable or feasible financial situation.
Yeah. So that for me, the challenges are just being old. The disability of old age.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
Okay, you're welcome, and I will not charge you for this.
All right, thank you.